Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Architect, and Quiver. Today, my very special guest is Daniel Holt, who is like, I don't know what your title is, but he does like the frames and expansion symbols and design stuff for Wizard of the Coast and Magic. What's your actual title?
I'm a senior game designer in Studio X for Magic
I should have probably asked that before we started. But he does really cool work, and we've also just hung out a lot at random cons and stuff. So I was super excited to have you on to just talk about two of my favorite things, expansion symbols and Neon Dynasty.
I also love those things.
Yeah. So how's it going, man? How are you doing?
Pretty good. Late Monday night.
Yeah, like as we're recording, March of the Machines is about to come out, which is like,
Oh yeah,
you know, every frame you've ever worked on all in one go.
Yeah, that was an exciting one. 4 set symbols.
Oh, really? Wait, there's a okay, so there's a base symbol, the commander set symbol, the special sheet symbol, and what's the fourth one?
The Aftermath epilogue set.
Oh, I guess I wasn't counting that as part of Mom, but
I did them all at the same time, so I love them
that's
together.
fair. Yeah, God, that's a lot of set symbols. How do you guys
Mhm.
not run out? Like, isn't that a worry that you're just like going through all the symbols?
No, they're all very straightforward. That's the idea of a good set symbol in my mind is that it's very straightforward. It's like you recognize it immediately. You can describe it in one word or one sentence, and the world building of every set just lends itself to so many things.
Yeah. So, because I know, like, for instance, I started in the dawn of time, and the Arabian Nights symbol was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It's still one of my favorites, like the whole scimitar thing.
Mhm.
And like, I love it when like you can look at a card and just immediately be transported to a time and place just through that expansion symbol. Um, when did you start playing Magic?
I started in 2004-ish, Kamigawa, and to everyone's surprise, I'm sure. I got I got in one draft of Fifth Dawn, and I remember drafting green. They hated on artifacts. It was an artifact set, felt good. I ran that draft, and then it was Kamigawa from there on out.
Yeah, and you're lucky because Triple Champions is a fantastic draft format.
I say like I remember when I was 14
Yeah,
playing,
you're like, "Of
but
course it was, yeah."
yeah.
It's like, "I just drafted 3 GTAs, it's fine." Um, and then because like, the only reason it's top of mind for me is that me and Wheeler on my other show, Shivam and
Mhm.
Wheeler Love Magic, we recorded something like 6 hours of content based on Kamigawa's block, like, just going through and breaking down every set. So it's all really fresh in my mind still, and,
Yeah.
Saviors sucked. Like, I don't know how you stay a fan of Kamigawa after Saviors of Kamigawa. Like, what so actually, yeah, I'm curious, like, you were what, 14 or something when you started.
Yep.
That means that, like, you must have just been taken in by the setting because I can't imagine the card mechanics were selling you on, like, Epic or whatever, Sweep.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all of Magic the Gathering took me in, right? Like
Mm,
I was new to Magic, so that was what I had. And as a 14-year-old, I didn't get new packs every week or whatever I
yeah.
wanted.
Mhm.
I had what my allowance could buy, and then me and my friends would just shuffle up and play random kitchen table Magic. And that was a whole year of a block, and that was just my whole introduction to it.
Oh, yeah. That's the best feeling too, when you're just like, because when packs are so hard to come by and so rare, you crack it and you're like, it doesn't matter what's in there, you're just happy to have some new cards, and it just feels really cool.
Yeah, and you
Like,
have the player's guide spread out, like, oh, I
oh,
could
yeah.
open this. I want one of those.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, my experience was like, "Oh, I crack a revised pack." Half of the pack is lands, and the other half is, like, unplayable Drek, and you're still like, "But it could be a Shivan Dragon in there, let's go!" And it's a Thought Lace, and you're like, "Well, next time." We
I
suffered a
remember
lot for this art.
I remember not playing blue in Kamigawa because the moonfolk were too confusing for me. I was like, I don't know how to use these. I'm gonna let my friend have all the moonfolk cards.
I'll say this: 14-year-old you was right. All these things where you have to bounce your lands back to your hand and do all this. No, none of that. I'm
I don't think
sorry.
he won often. I don't think he knew what he was doing either. But
Okay, so how did you get into Wizards?
yeah, so I was working at Cool Stuff Inc. For a while
Mm,
there. Shout out
sponsor
to
of
the
the show.
sponsor. Yeah, I love Evan and the folks over there. And I applied for Wizards and I got the job. And I came in the door as kind of a presentation maker, catch-all graphic design work. There was one other graphic designer in the studio at the time. He was doing all the frames, all the set symbols, all the things.
Oh,
And
geez.
came in and just kind of like, here, work on this other stuff. And I did. But then they realized, I was a competitive Magic player until I started at Wizards. I knew Magic like the back of my hand at that point. And I kind of found this niche of UX mechanical frames that wasn't really being explored. So I started adopting that. And then that
What
design
set did you start with? Or what round when did you jump in?
for Wizards.
Yeah.
The first day I walked in the door, I was shoved into an archery kickoff meeting, and that was for Eldraine.
Oh, wow. Oh god, when magic broke in half. Okay. But I will say this though, the storybook frames from Eldraine are still some of my favorites ever. Like
Yep.
the art that they chose for those frames both makes a frame pop and was also just stunningly gorgeous. Like when you can
Mhm.
make random draft commons into like some of the most beautiful pieces of art.
That was the start of Booster Fun as we know it
Yeah, it
today.
was.
So
I remember I got a collector's pack from that set and I was not thrilled. And then they got better and now I buy a collector's box every set and I'm just very happy with it. Like I just pulled this neat oil slick uh
Ooh.
stuff from my Phyrexia thing. These lands by the way are amazing. Like
Yeah,
I love them. They feel really cool, which is weird. It's weird that Magic has a texture, but these cards feel really cool.
I don't think
Sorry, I
I've seen
opened
the
them
final.
today, so
Oh, you're fine. I don't think I've seen the finalized ones in person yet. We have the wall where we've tested different print treatments, so I haven't
yeah,
seen the final ones.
they
So
do
that's exciting.
they look amazing. Like I was ready to be very down on this just as a matter of principle, and then like my son and I cracked these packs, and we're just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I love basic lands. I am a very like I'm a connoisseur of finding good basics. Like I use only Euro or APAC lands or the Bob
Mhm.
Ross, very specific. But these ones are sick. These ones are just sick. So kudos to your team or whoever came up with that idea.
Yeah,
I
that's
hate
the
everything
print innovation
Phyrexian.
team. Yeah.
I hate the Phyrexians, but I love their land. So here we go. Yeah, so you started with Eldraine, which is amazing because that was like a pivoting point for Wizards just in general in terms of changing design philosophy, changing the graphic like approach to
Mhm.
Magic, and it feels like you can kind of mark that as a demarcation between what Magic used to be and what it is kind of now. So that must have been an exciting time to jump in there. Also, we kind of totally glossed over between being 14 and like however old you were when you got in there. I
You
didn't know
age quickly, right?
you were a competitive player, really?
Yeah, I was a tournament grinder. I wouldn't say I got, no pro tour level or anything, but I was going to GPs, and every Friday
Nice.
night was F&M getting ready for Saturday, PTQs, things like that, and working at Cool Stuff. I could just walk out into the lobby and they were hosting several of
What
them.
did you do cool stuff, or were you out working at the physical store?
I was a graphic designer for Cool Stuff, so I
Oh,
did all the banners and things on the website and stuff like that
oh, that's
on
cool.
Evan's marketing team.
Nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, so walking in and seeing Throne of Eldraine must have been wild.
Yeah, and they were still wrapping up Ravnica. It was the three sets of Ravnica in a row. And
Right.
like my second day, somebody pulled me aside and they're like, "Hey, Gideon dies." No spoiler alert or anything. I'm like, "Well, great," because I was reading the stories every week up until then as well. So spoiler alert, Gideon dies, and then yeah, it was really that turning point after War of the Spark.
God, dude, I'm still angry. I will never not be mad about Gideon just getting
Yep.
chump deathed. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're going to kill the indestructible guy by having him lose his indestructibility, that is BS. Mm.
Well, I have one
Anyways,
individual I blame for it for telling me. So who had nothing to do with
Yeah.
the writing.
No, no, man. The day that that story came out, I straight broke on Twitter and I wrote this long eulogy for Gideon and everything. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Um, I was really mad about that. But that said, though, so like, what was your kind of take of like the way things were going? Like when you saw what they were doing with the new kind of storybook frames or changing the look of these cards, that must have been a real trip because Magic hadn't really done that before.
Yeah,
Well,
it
they
was
kind of
cool.
had.
I remember working on some early looks at, what Booster Fun could be and how we could make, packs really exciting. I remember talking over that with, like, Jess Lanzillo and Mark Hagan at the time. But at the
Mm,
time, I was there for presentations and the World Guide, so my focus with Eldraine specifically was just getting the World Guide ready to send out to artists to make the cards.
yeah, the world guides, by the way, are like these big, thick, like pamphlets, which are basically concept art and
Yep,
story design, and like give the artist basically a reference of like turn to page 58 to see what the core look like on this plane. And it's very very cool if you ever get a chance to see one. And if you get the chance to see one, don't tell anybody because those are very rare and you need to be under NDA to look.
it's
um,
true, and March of the Machine was the last one I technically made, so
oh, nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this to like I'm looking forward to actually playing this set, which I will have done by the time this comes out. um, but man, March of the Machines is sick. It looks
I'm
really
very
really good.
excited for pre-release this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to be pre-releasing in Richmond and I am super stoked for this.
I'll be in Seattle.
We I go where I'm invited is what I'm saying. Um,
I go where I live.
yeah, I was gonna go to Seattle, and then Star City was like, "Hey, would you like to come to Richmond?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I would." So it's great. Um,
Richmond's a good time. That's
oh
where
yeah,
we met, right?
we met at like
Yeah,
the Command Fest Richmond the last year. Man,
yeah.
the first like real event back. Oh my god, that was amazing.
The food's really good there
Yes,
too.
yeah, it was great. It was so much fun. Um, okay, so how did you move from doing world guides and stuff to doing this? Like, when did you shift over?
I think call time was the real turning point. I
Uh,
voiced some opinions and whatnot, but then I really pushed for snow frames and the Fortell
oh, I love snow.
helper and things like that. So that was where I really dove into mechanical frames. And then we're like, oh, we do need someone, considering every time there's a new mechanic and whatnot. And so I kind of found my pace there with that.
Let me check what the Fortell. There was a Fortell frame?
It's the Raven watermark.
Oh, yeah, the watermark behind it. Sorry, I'm looking at Cerul's back, and I was just like, "I don't remember the frame."
No, it's
But,
just the watermark.
no, it's cool. I think that's
Yeah.
a sick watermark. Kaldheim was one of my favorite, like, sets, just both in terms of play and the look. The Snowlands were gorgeous, and I loved how the frost kind of feels over the snow type cards. It looked
Mhm.
really, really cool. It was very inspired, so, well done.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy with how they were received because the whole time I'm working on them, I'm like, "I'm just putting white dots on things. They're gonna hate it."
But I mean, it really worked though. Like when you look at like
Yeah.
Bergstrider or something, it's got that real kind of cool iciness to it. And I don't know, the cards in that set looked sick. And it was just
Mhm.
really, really cool. Like that and also the alt art with the cool
Yeah.
Celtic knots and everything. Oh my god. It was so rad. That's still, I think, one of my favorite frame treatments ever. Like
Yeah.
that
That
one
that was
and
James Arnold still, so
yeah. Like, because it's weird. Like before Eldraine, nobody cared about the frames of cards. There was old
Mhm.
frame or new frame, and ooh, look, Theros has a little like stars and stuff for enchantment. Okay, yay! Or like the legend crown showing up, and we're like, wow, that's a good idea. We should just do that all the time. Um, but it wasn't until like Eldraine when we actually sit and start looking at these things and like, oh, we need to care about like every set since then has had a different frame treatment, hasn't it?
Yeah, Eldraine was the kickoff of Booster Fun, so we've had that every set. Not every set has mechanical frames, like,
No, but
some
every
sets
set
just
has
don't
at
need to.
least had something, some
Yeah,
kind of frame change, or like, because like let's see, Eldraine was followed by Theros, right? And Theros had
yep. The
the obviously the
constellations.
enchantment, the constellation frames, which was followed by Strixhaven or
Ikoria.
Ikoria. I couldn't like Ikoria had the comic book frames and the Godzilla stuff, which was amazing.
It's
Uh,
easy for me because I associate them with their playtest name, and it's alphabetical.
that see
So
that I don't have that advantage. I'm just trying to go for time stopped, and then we just had infinite pandemic. And who
That's where
knows what
Ikoria
card?
came out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad Ikoria came out during the pandemic, though, just because I would hate to have had to have deal with like mutate and companions in paper. Like that would have been real miserable.
It is a complicated mechanic, I admit.
Yeah,
I led the game design for the mutate deck in Commander, so
really.
I got to pester the rules a lot with that one.
I like the first thing I did after Ikoria was make a mutate deck with Nethroi. Like
Mhm.
it's half mutate and half reanimate, and I just love that deck. It's so much fun to play. And if I had known that you were the one who's in charge of the mutate deck, I would have a lot of beefs to raise with you. Like there are cards that need to have the cool alt art mutate thing that don't.
I
Like that's
agree.
there's that
Otrimi needs a
yes.
treatment.
And there's that stupid card in the commander set which you can like uh mutate onto to do like to destroy an artifact or enchantment and
Yep.
or something like that. Where's my alt art? Just saying.
No, I think
You
that about a lot of the commander decks because I'm typically on one main set, one commander set with my game design side,
mm,
not the frames, but with the game design. And so every time we make new commander cards, I'm like, oh, I want special treatments of these.
yeah, seriously. It's just because I mean, think about it. Some of us who like to bling out our decks or fancy out our decks, and there's cards that are commander only, and then you're like, when am I ever going to get a frame or like a something, a foil, anything for this random card that only exists here? Like Felwar Stone for like decades was just not in
Mhm.
foil. And I think it is now. I don't remember, but it's just like there's just cards that I wish
Yeah.
had a thing and don't. Wait, when did you become a game designer?
Game design, I started with Ikoria. That was the very first product I worked on. And then,
Wow, that's very soon after like Eldraine.
yeah, I mean,
You moved quick, man.
it was pretty obvious when the presentation designer knew how to play Magic. And then I was I was already right there. So they let me try it out, and they're like, "Hey, he's not too bad." And then they kept me around.
What did you do on
Um,
Ikoria?
Ikoria was the commander decks only. I was in charge of the Otrimi Mutate deck, then
Mm.
the Calamax Spellslinger,
Oh,
and I
those
think
ones
I
Yeah.
are really
ended on the Jeskai one.
so you're the one to blame for the free spells.
At some point in there, the team made them. I won't take all the blame.
That's fine.
Uh,
I'm not. I blame Dave
yeah,
Humphreys. It's fine.
I
Um,
always blame Dave. He definitely was not working on that set, but okay, okay, Dave.
so that's rad. Then you split kind of like between these cool graphic designs and then also getting to just make magic cards.
Yep, and that's kind
That's
of where my title is now for jumping ahead to the future. But
that's
that's
sweet.
yeah,
Wow.
um, yeah, and then Strixhaven was the first main set I worked on.
Were you Strixhaven was fantastic. It's still one of my
I
favorite
really enjoyed
drafts.
it.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Mhm.
Were you like just on the team or were you doing the like you probably weren't a lead at that point.
Oh
Have you
no,
led any sets?
I am leading my first set currently.
Ooh, can't
Uh,
wait.
Exciting, right? I can't wait for everybody to find out about that. And then I led Vision of the Brothers War Commander decks. So it
Oh,
was
nice.
me with Gavin on my team, and then we flip flop for set design. Since there's only two decks, it was just the two of us.
That must have been some weird meetings. Like, all right, so team, and Gavin's like, hello, on the far side
Imagine
of
the
the table.
handoff. There's always a Vision to set design handoff.
Well, here.
Here you
And then
go.
he's like, I get to sit in the big chair now.
He's great
Yeah.
though. It was a really fun time.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, which deck did you work on, or you do work on both of them?
I was mostly the Mishra deck, or sorry, not Mishra, Urza. Mostly
There's
Urza,
only
and
two.
then there's only two. 50 shot, right? No, I was mostly Urza, and we kind of kept that going forward. And then mostly when Gavin was leading it, we just kept focusing on tuning and then playtesting with the other decks around.
Yeah, dude, those decks are very powerful. Like, I, one of my friend's sons got to like, I gave him the Urza deck to play, and I used two of my decks to just play against him. Me and his dad and him. He's like 9, and he sat and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna play soft because I don't want to crush this kid with
Yeah.
my very built commander decks. And it became like a real sweatshop because that deck has got synergies
Which
up
one
the
did he have?
wazoo. He had the Urza deck,
Okay, nice.
and it's just like
The better
it's
brother.
it's busted. holy crap, that deck is very, very strong. And I'm like, why are my decks that I've worked on for a decade struggling to keep up with this thing?
I love to hear that.
I felt real dumb, let me tell you. Um, Dude, he thrashed us real hard. Like, dude, yeah, those decks were good though. They're really fun and really interesting and had a lot of cool mechanical designs and stuff. But that's not what I brought you on here. I mean, it kind of is what I brought you here to talk about though, because that's like really cool. When you're working on a commander set, what's your like jumping off point normally?
We typically look at it's associated to a set normally. So Brothers War
Mm,
was associated with the Brothers War. So it was pretty obvious 2 decks, 2 brothers. Like
sure.
uh, I tested some things I can't talk about early on, but we ended up just going with the 2 brothers.
Well, let's go back to Ikoria. There were 5 of them there,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like,
Yeah,
so how did you like? I mean, obviously, you knew that you had to work on the 3, like the arcs. I mean, the shards because that was the
right.
color designation of the set. But like, how did you kind of come up with the themes here for like these decks, or did you guys have like a plan in mind?
Um, that's so long ago. It
Yeah,
was it was mostly
it
related
was
to
like,
themes in the main set. So yeah, 2020 is when the decks came out, and so I
which
would
means it
have
must have
worked
been
on
like
them.
2018 and working on
Yeah.
this. God, that's
um,
a different life.
right. Like I'll answer kind of vaguely because again, I don't remember it super well. But we look at the main set mechanics. So Soul Tie Mutate made sense there. I
Mm,
think a lot of the keyword counters were focused in the Abzan colors. So that's why that deck kind of went that route. I know I'm using the Tarkir names,
yeah,
but
it's fine.
that's
Nobody
what's stuck in my
remembers.
head.
Like, uh, I can't even pretend to make them up because I literally don't remember the triome names.
I could probably say all
Zygarde,
5, but I would Gigantha. I think is one of
Gigantha.
them.
I mean, I can name the dinosaurs who were at the head, right? Like, uh, no, I can't even do that. Like Brokos, Gigantha. No, Gigantha is a companion.
Oh, is it? Yep, you're
Yeah,
right.
Gigantha
You're
is like the
absolutely
five
right.
color companion. Come on, you're messing me up, man. Rebel's gonna hunt me
You
down
believed
now.
it. You believed it.
I know Lutri. That's what I know. Okay,
But so factions led the
sure.
choices for that. Just like
So,
Strixhaven, that one had 5 decks as well.
right. So the Strixhaven decks were also really good. I broke a bunch of those apart to use for parts. Did you get to make cards for them, or were you just kind of sculpting the decks out of pre-made cards already?
I got to make cards. If you're on the team, you're making the cards. The set league kind of owns all of them, but they rely on the team to submit new ones, build the starting decks and whatnot. And for
Actually,
Strixhaven, oh, go ahead.
can we go into that a little bit? Like, what's the process
Yeah,
like of working on a team to make a commander deck? So,
yeah,
like, they
sure.
come to you and they're like, "We've got 5 factions for Strixhaven," and do they just assign each team member a deck and say, "Try to put something together," or
Yeah,
how does this
that's
work?
that's kind of it. It just depends on the lead. Most sets I've been on, I've been assigned a deck. That deck is my baby for a while. I bring it to play test. We kind of figure out what the deck needs help to move forward with. So that's where we start brainstorming the new cards because they're like, oh well, it could really use another. We'll say board wipe. It probably doesn't
Yeah,
need a board wipe, but let's say it needs one more board wipe for this archetype. So we'll make a new board wipe for it. We're trying to help that deck have enough legs.
yeah. So,
And
like, do you guys? I mean, one thing I've always been curious, like, do you start with like a skeleton of just like the cards from the set that you know will work in this, and then like historic just things that you know are going to show up in the deck? Like, okay, well, this is going to have a rampant growth and a soul ring, and like some other just basic deck building materials, or like do you like have to spend like an hour or two just combing through Scryfall and trying to find out cool +1/+1 counters to put into this deck or something?
I mean, it's kind of everything. We're trying to make a functioning deck. So if
Mm,
you just said the word +1/+1 counter. Let's say I'm trying to make a +1/+1 counter deck. I'm just trying to put every reprint in there I can think of that works. Just get all the normal commander staple pieces in, the removal,
sure.
the board wipes, the ramp, and I'm just trying to make a working deck because as fast as I can, because we're just trying to get like 2-way play test to see if we even like the
Mm,
concept of this theme.
that's a good
And
point.
that's the first step. Is just does the deck work and does it sound like it's going to be fun?
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense because you guys just need to churn and like then you can start to make cards to fill in the holes, obviously, or
Yep.
like find another reprint or be like, hey, this theme does not work. Find a different theme for
Yeah,
this color.
and that happens. That happens sometimes too. We have to pick the
Yeah.
colors too, right? So like maybe red blue can't support this theme, but red white sure can. Or
Mm.
so we do some shifting like that sometimes too. But we know we have X number of new card slots that can help us.
Yeah, I mean That's one thing I noticed is like a lot of times I'm like, man, like the Will Held deck that came out with the zombies deck that came out with
Mhm.
Zendikar, Midnight, whatever it was, um, Crimson Vow, Midnight Hunt. I don't know.
Midnight
The
Hunt, I
point
think.
though is like I'm like looking at this deck, like, okay, this is like 70% of my Grim Grin deck, and then the other 30% are just cards that you made that are better than anything I can find because you're just like, what would make a zombie deck great? And it's like, let's just make all these amazing cards. And I'm like, well, I I can't do that. My deck is just gonna die to this one now. um, but it's really cool though, because like it's nice to see when you guys put your eye on like this archetype and give us cards that are tailor made for it, so that we
Mhm.
can actually play functional decks instead of having a lot of kind of digging to do to find like the one Mercadian Mask zombie that does the thing. Um, I don't think Mercadian Mask had zombies. Not the point. We were talking about this is why you don't have ADHD people hosting podcasts 170 episodes in. It's because of the fact that I can't stay on a topic to save my goddamn life.
Is that what
Um,
episode number this is?
yeah, this is going to be 170.
Woo!
That's actually that's a lot actually. That's
That is a
really
lot.
cool. Yeah. Um, so since we're talking about you as a game designer, let's
Mhm.
talk about a set that we both love very much. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Which is,
Yeah.
like, the coolest friggin' set. Like, the other show I mentioned, Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic, our
Yep.
opening theme song is a leftover piece of a song that was left off the soundtrack of the Kamigawa soundtrack.
That's
So it's
awesome.
super sick. It's just like, "Oh my god." Did you work on that set?
Okay, I did a lot for that set, including being like, "Hey, we should do Kamigawa." Like, I said that since I walked in the door.
How did you
Uh,
sell that? Because like, look, Morrow was talking for literal decades that they're never going back.
yeah,
Decades.
it was convenient. There was I went into a meeting one day. We had everything, all the planes listed on the board. Like here's the planes we're going to. You see Innistrad there. You see Streets of New Capenna, and in the middle was a gap. We just cut some world that was supposed to be there, and they're like, "Hey, we got these really dark worlds on both sides of it, so we want some contrast there. They need to be like this size creatures. They can't deal with this." I'm like, "Hey, you just described Kamigawa. Let's do it." And that's they had all been like kind of tolerating me saying it for the last year and a half or two, but then they're like, "Wait, he's right. I think we could do that." And then we started testing it, and we were gonna just do kind of a new world, and we're like, we're not gonna call it Kamigawa, but hey, it might be. And then
Yeah.
eventually it was.
And then you're like, "Why don't we just own it and call it Kamigawa and call it a
Yeah.
day?"
So
Let me
for
tell
Kami
you.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So for Kamigawa, I got to do a lot of the world building. I helped out there. I got to do that world building worlds panel talking about that, and then I did game design for both the main set and the commander, and I was on that the entirety of its life cycle.
Man, let me tell you, there's never been a rebirth of a setting better than Neon Dynasty, except for like original Dominaria coming back. And like Dominaria is like my best set of all time. And then
Hmm.
like Neon Dynasty is like right there, you know? Because I was very skeptical. Like when I saw the first like glimpse of it in December or whatever, I was like, "Ooh, I'm not sure. This looks weird." And then it came out, and I'm like, you first off, like the anime trailer. I watched it with my son
Hmm.
again yesterday. It's the coolest damn thing that's ever been done. Holy crap! And then there was a soundtrack, you know,
Yep.
John just killed it with that thing, and the stories were sick, the art was sick, the fact that there was, like, cards for my Enchantress deck and cards for my Artifact deck, and they're both together and amazing.
Yep.
The limited play was incredibly good. Like, maybe the only thing I didn't like about that was the stupid, like, invokes. Were invokes from Kamigawa, maybe? Invoke, like,
Yep.
the
The invoke
yeah, those
cycle.
things suck and I hate them, but that being said, every other thing in that set was goddamn amazing. And like you killed it on every possible facet. Like it felt almost like WotC was scared that this set wasn't going to work because you guys put so much into it. Like you put so much work into the marketing and into the like the whole setup to make this rollout work. And I think the fans responded because like that's one of the most
Mhm.
popular sets ever made.
It
Like
was it was certainly a love project, and I think, maybe if I planted the seed, everyone just soon like helped it blossom. Like everyone was so
Yeah.
excited once it started taking shape inside the building. So I think that's where that excitement you're talking about come from. It's like about the time marketing got to it, it was already like this fully grown child. They're like, oh, this is great. Let's run with it.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
amazing. I mean, dude, the basic lands are sick. The like,
mhm.
did you get to make the set? Did you make the expansion symbol for this
I
set?
did. The Kamigawa was one of the first times I got to start working on set symbols full time.
How cool was that to know that
That
you're
was pretty
putting your
sweet.
stamp on Kamigawa?
It was really cool. Yeah, both the main set and commander for that.
Like, I loved it. It's like this kind of like techno looking Mount Fuji type of thing. What was your kind of process there? Or not process, like,
Uh,
I don't know, inspiration?
well, I have like 30 sketches I did for it. I went a little hard on this one. Uh, and I wasn't even going to include that one. Uh,
Really?
I I picked my top like 8 or so to show to move forward from round 1 with the other stakeholders, and then the creative lead Emily Tang pointed out that she loved that one. And I'm like, fine, I'll push it through another round, and it's what got picked. So
It's so cool though. It
and
really captures the setting.
yeah, the inspiration of the natural sun and mountain setting mixing in with the techno of the merge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very evocative, and it's
Mhm.
very like, it tells the whole story, which is it's hard to do that in a small, like, tiny little
Right.
image to sell this entire story, right? Like, there are set design symbols that are maybe less successful than that, but like the Modern Horizons little diamond thing, what does that mean? Um, but the thing is though, the Kamigawa set and like the weird one was the Commander set one looked like Transformers head, and I was like, I've not been able to shake that image from my head. It feels like a mecha just like smiling at me.
Yeah, the
Um,
inspiration behind that was a origami shield. Maybe
oh, I
knitted
see
crow
that
over a
now.
strong guts. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'll give you that. Um,
thanks.
I don't know. It just I love everything about that set from top to bottom.
Mhm.
Um, did you get a chance to make any commander deck? I mean, beyond the commander decks that you made, did you make any commander decks out of the commanders from the main set?
Yes, I mean, my one rule is I only build Kamigawa-led commanders.
Mm.
So, uh, just looking down. I have Kyodai, Jeskai Spirits. Ignore the black green color identity. I don't use them. It was Hinata originally, and then there's always the rule zero talk of Hinata. No, it's not that kind of a Hinata deck. I promise. It's just
Ugh,
Spirit Tribal. So I just
Hinata's
ignore that conversation now.
yeah. You know what? Sometimes it's just better to sidestep it entirely.
Yeah.
Hinata's a broken ass card though, man. Like that card is mean. I've yet to see a deck. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say like, "Oh yeah, this started as a very peaceful, happy little spirit deck, and now it's just like full control lock." And I'm like, "Okay, well,
Yeah.
what you gonna do?"
I think there's a long range of what you can do with it. My favorite thing to do with it was cast the Soot Sprite's Blessing. I think that's what it's called. X red, make X. So I just enchanted everything on the board.
Oh yeah, that
Uh,
thing is great. I love that spell. I use that in my god, who the heck is her? I had this halfling who's enchantress lady from Baldur's Gate that can cast enchantments on other people's things and go encourage them to attack each other. So I would use Sister Bright's blessing to put like these enchantments all around. It's embarrassing because I built like I talked about her for like months and I cannot remember for the life of me. It doesn't matter. But like the legends in the set were rad.
yeah.
Like Ishin was super cool.
Yeah. I had an
Uh,
Isshin deck for a little bit too.
And okay, I need you work directly on this set. You can tell me,
Yeah.
did you guys call that stupid Silver Fur Master Splinter in playtest? It's the
I
rat
think
who's a ninja lord.
his playtest name was just Rat Sensei.
Oh, boo! Because like it's literally Master Splinter. Come on.
We can't
Um,
put other IPs in our product.
the, that was a universe beyond waiting to happen. Just saying. Um, have you gotten to work on any of the Universe Beyond cards? Because they all have weird like set designs and stuff too.
Yeah, I was on Warhammer 40K.
Oh, it's
I
so
was
good.
I was brought in as the person who doesn't know 40K but knows Magic. Everyone else on the team loved 40K, and I'm just over here like, yep.
Sure,
But it was
Tyranids,
fun.
let's go.
I like the Tyranids. I worked on the Esper tokens. Was it Esper tokens? The
Maybe. I don't
Was
know. The only
from
2 decks from there I've played with so far were the mono black artifacts one and the Tyranids one because that deck is broken. It's so much fun. Really quickly looking it up.
I'm also trying to look
Abaddon
at
the Despoiler.
it.
There's yeah,
Inquisitor
Inquisitor
Greyfax.
Greyfax. Yeah,
Yep.
that deck is cool too. Did you get to work on like the graphic design of that, or was that somebody else?
Um, I think these were so this was kind of already done. The UB frame was kind of made for Walking Dead and Stranger
Mm,
Things, and then 40K I think was the first full Commander product to use it. And so I think I did a little bit of revamping and touching up of it, but it was mostly made at that point.
okay,
That was
yeah.
one of the last things James Arnold did as the designer before he left.
Mm. I mean, that deck has the one problem I found with the 40K decks is that they've got such a beautiful uniformity of the styling that it's hard to want to put cards into it. You know, because then you're like, oh, this jarringly different like graphic design treatment. The one card that just stands out in the pile, um, which is weird because like all my other commander decks look like somebody threw a sack of random magic cards on the table, and they're just from like the entire history of the game. It's like there's no consistency, there's no rhyme or reason. But like the 40K decks, I'm like, I don't want to touch these because they're perfect out of the box. And luckily, they also play really well, so it kind of just works out.
I
Um,
love to hear that they're perfect out of the box.
dude, they're in my opinion, they're the best precons that WotC's ever made. Like just as a hermetically sealed device, they're pretty much up there with like the original plane chase or
Yeah.
like just absolutely genius design. Um,
I think my favorite, if I can say my favorite precon I've ever
please.
made, I think is the red green Faldorn deck from CLB. Uh, the cast from Exile make wolves.
Oh, that
Uh,
card is great. That is a
that deck was
super
just
cool deck.
fun to figure out how I could play things from Exile, just all the different ways in red green.
Like, I thought it was really neat because it was such a unique take on this. Like, it
Mhm.
was just coming from a very different like, you don't think about red green when you think about Exile, right?
No,
So, it was really neat to see this kind of different way to look at that because red green always ends up just being kind of the same, like big monsters and counters and just like rah rah rah. So, it was neat to see like a take that was from a like left field almost. Actually, how did you come up like, who came up with that? Was that like a Gavin joint, or did you guys try to figure like
Gavin led that. I've done a lot of teams with Gavin at this point. But so Gavin led that, and I think when I joined the team, they had already kind of done the backgrounds of the characters that we were doing. Like I think as soon as I joined, we already knew Faldorn was the face.
mm,
So we were just designing to her suite of powers and kind of the concept. I don't remember really picking what we were doing.
yeah, because Faldorn is a wild. So for those of you at home who are listening on audio, Faldorn is a 3/3 for one red, green, and it says when you cast a spell from exile or a land enters your battlefield under your control from exile, create a 2/2 wolf token, and one untap, discard a card, exile the top card of your library. So basically, like she's made for playing with all the impulse cards and kind of like um, all those things that are just like, oh, flip exile the top two cards of your library and play it.
Mhm.
Um, which is really cool because like the only other time we'd really seen that is with Prosper, and Prosper is just broken. Wait, was Prosper also in this then?
I think Prosper was from AFR,
No,
so I didn't work.
Prosper was AFR, which is weird because that set was super weak, and then it has like some of the strongest commander cards ever made. The Prosper deck is nutter butters if you haven't played it. Out of
I
the
haven't.
box, it's busted. It is insanely powerful. Uh, until Warhammer, I would have said that it was the strongest possible deck you could make in a precon. It's ridiculous. But uh man, I'm like all over the place, man. This is so
No,
wild because
I'm chasing with you.
yeah, no, I didn't know that you were a designer. Otherwise, I would have reformulated the way I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about. Because like I wanted to bring you on because I love expansion symbols. It's like one of my.
Yeah.
It's weird because people like people glom onto different things about magic, right? Like you find
Mhm.
something that's cool that you really dig, and I always find the things that people don't necessarily glom onto. Like basic lands are my jam. The back of the card is my favorite thing. I love the Deckmaster logo. Like expansion symbols are a thing I care deeply about. So I'm just curious, like what sets have you worked on, or like have you just been doing them on all of them?
In what regard have I worked on
Like,
which?
or like which sets were you most? uh, directly responsible for creating the expansion symbol for.
Expansion symbols. Okay.
Yes.
That
Sorry.
would, yeah. I mean, we were just talking about game design, and typically they don't always overlap. So,
Yeah.
um, Unfinity, Kamigawa, or Neon Dynasty, and one other at the time. I think it was Kaladesh Remastered on Arena. I think those three were where I was still working with James Arnold, and he was just like, "Hey, I know you love Kamigawa. Here, do the Kamigawa one, etc." And then after he left, I took over, and that was starting with Brothers War. So anything Brothers War forward, I either directly made or I managed. I now have Dalton Pankaranha. He works on the booster fund, but he also helps me with set symbols.
Cool. Because
Yeah.
like Dominaria Remastered, for instance, did you work on that one?
Dominaria Remastered, that was Dalton. But
Okay.
I led the I managed that one.
Yeah, because like that's a weirdly cool symbol. It looks like the
Yeah,
invasion symbol, but it's also got like wings and I don't know. I dig it.
it's the weather light as seen from above or front.
Oh damn! Whoa! I didn't. That did not occur to me. Like half of the fun is figuring out what these set symbols are supposed to represent. Like I remember when what Eldritch Moon came out and they were hiding the set
Mhm.
symbol from us because it was going to spoil the fact that it's either Liliana's head or Emrakul.
Yeah,
And the fact that it was like the could have been either was like one of the coolest things ever. Just because like holy crap, how do you make something that could be two things in like that tiny little box? And I don't know. I'm very easily amused by these things. I like this stuff a lot.
yeah.
Um,
I love Shadows over Innistrad. That's one of my favorite blocks, and obviously been playing it on Arena lately. But I got to do the remastered symbols for that on Arena, so that was a nice little nod to one of my favorite formats.
yeah, I liked that format, and I hated the art design because it was all visceral body horror, and that is not a place for me.
It's
Um,
tentacles.
yeah, like, dude, eyeballs in the wrong places. Like no, none of that. Poor Thraben inspector staring at this thing coming out of her hand. I'm like, ah, gross. Please stop. Um, uh, yeah. So, oh, did you work on March of the Machines?
Yes. I did all 4 of those, and that's one of my, I think, favorite set symbols was the main set March of the Machines because as I posted about this the other day, I don't know if you saw, but as
Yeah.
soon as I posted it, people knew it was Elspeth's sword, and I couldn't confirm,
Oh,
I couldn't deny because it was still too early. But then once it was said that that was it, nobody caught on that it was actually the sword breaking apart a Phyrexian symbol between the sword and the shattered pieces.
dude, I saw it immediately because I was like, "Oh my god, they tilted the phi," because I was staring at so
Yeah.
many of, like, the Phyrexia symbols, which is just the standard, obviously, the symbol of Phyrexia. Like, that must have been the easiest set symbol in the world to come up with for just all will be one. Like,
It took
here
some convincing. There were some other symbols that were, quote, doing better than it in the stakeholder polls, and
yeah,
but
sometimes
I'm
you just
glad
need
we
to be
got through
very
with
blunt.
that.
But, yeah, like, I saw this thing and I'm like, first off, that is 100% Elspeth's sword because you could see
Mhm.
because the 2 little white dots by the hilt there. And then the way it pierces through it, you tilt that sideways and it's a Phyrexian symbol. So I was like, this is so good. It is so well put together. I was
Yeah,
really, really impressed with that.
yeah.
Um,
Sometimes you just have to worry about all the detail in the set symbol. Like you can't be too detailed because it's going to get so small. And I think that was
yeah,
probably one of the concerns with this one. But I think it turned out pretty well, and that you can still read it.
I mean that is one of the questions I had. Like, how do you? Because, like, for instance, I found that the mythic and the rare on this one feel very close because there's not a lot of
Hmm.
uh, body to fill in with the color. I guess like that must be one of those challenges you guys have to deal with when you're like, how do you like when you're looking at all these set symbols? Is that a consideration you take into mind?
Yeah, I typically because I only do one color whenever I'm pitching, the 30
Yeah.
symbols. I don't do the full span of colors for all 30. I mostly do mythic rare or rare. And then I'll tell you, it's real jarring when I have to invert it for common. I'm like, is that what I drew?
You're like, oh no, it's in black and white. What's going on? Um, yeah, that I mean, like, s- I don't know. I just think it's such a there's such a an art involved in putting this
Mhm.
together because like you have to make them very different from every other set because you don't want to have
Right.
confusion.
That's the main function. You have to
Yeah,
consider set symbols are very much about function. They have to instantly be recognizable as different from other sets and recognizable as what set it is. But then, yeah, then after that, it's more of an art form. You want it to
Yeah.
symbolize the set in some way. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing, etc. So it's real merging of
What's
the
your
two
favorite one that you haven't worked on?
that I haven't worked on.
Yeah,
I really like Amonkhet because it is a pyramid. I think it's still in modern magic, but it can be just described as a pyramid. Like I love how simple and straightforward it is.
that's fair.
Anytime I can do a set symbol that is that clean, I love it. Like the Brothers War, I think was something I got close to that where I sliced the gear in half and slit it, and it's a gear, and
Yeah,
that's all it is, but it's very
dude.
loud on what it is.
When I saw that symbol, I was like, "Oh, this is clever as hell," because it's the war and it's the Urza's gear, but it's split in half, and I was like, "That is." s- I love it when I look at one of these things, and I'm like, in one small little tiny pixel, I can see the entire thought process of what happened here. It's that's the sort of thing that you like the player feels good about like seeing and
Mhm.
like understanding. You're like, I feel real clever because I figured this thing out. And like sometimes it's like the new Capenna with looking like brass knuckles almost, which is
Yep.
kind of weird. Um, it's kind of weird. I think the only one that I was like ever just a little like confused by is the fact that no, Midnight Hunt and AFR looked like almost identical, which is weird because like they were
What
just
was
like faces but inverted.
Oh, sure, it's the dragon head with the,
Yeah, the dragon
helmet.
head versus the like when you look at the commons from afar, they kind of and because they were next to each other in standard, it was like, oh, this is hard to tell. But otherwise, I think like it's just been really, really cool. I'm like big fan.
Thanks.
Um, but can I talk to you about frames?
Yeah,
Because that's
let's
what I
talk.
actually wanted to talk to you about, and I haven't. Because I think that the frame treatments that have been done in Magic since Eldraine have been amazing.
Mhm.
The only one that didn't work for me was Theros with the Greek one, just because I didn't kind of like I don't know. They aren't always going to work for me, right? But like I loved the old timey D&D look of the Baldur's Gate and AFR with the brown beige kind of background and the
Yeah.
splat of color. It's
I
so
mean, it had to be
beautiful.
done, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, it was yeah.
I mean, the fact that you guys got like Errol Otis to come back or like Larry Elmore or whatever. Oh my god. Ah, as an old time D&D player, that like warmed my heart.
And I'm
Um,
not a D&D player, and even I'm like, "This is it. I understand what's happening."
okay, dude, I gotta talk to you about the coolest freaking frame. I've still got one sitting here on my desk. This is Yidris from
Yes.
the Secret Lair, but it's Yidris with the raised Kamigawa kind of. I don't even know what you guys called it frame. Like it was
Mhm.
the one that they textured upward somehow. Is it actually like thicker?
I think it has a texture to it. I can't say for sure
Yeah,
offhand.
but whatever those foils were, the super cool ones,
Yeah.
those are amazing. Like,
Mhm.
they look I mean, first off, the alt art frames in Kamigawa I mean, in Capenna looked
Capenna.
amazing
Yeah.
to begin with, but
Mhm.
those raised foils were just some of the coolest cards I've ever seen in Magic until these stupid etched oils came out.
That's
But,
all the print innovation team just pushing and testing.
yeah, like, I didn't even know
Yeah.
you could do that sort of thing. It's so wild. Um, what's been your favorite alt frame to work on?
Um, I guess there's probably should clarify. A lot of the things we're talking about here is booster fun.
Okay, yes.
I helped establish sort of like that we wanted booster fun back at Eldraine, but I don't actually work on the booster fun frames. That's Dalton Pankaranha.
Okay,
He does all the illustrations for that. He just came on
alright.
during March of the Machine. I do the mechanical frames, so if it has to do with anything related to gameplay,
So, like,
uh,
if you had been there during Avacyn, you would've made the miracle frame.
yes, I did the miracle frame for the Warhammer deck because the one of the
Oh,
decks
yeah, there
had to
was the
have
one that
that.
card was super cool, by the way. Um,
But I had to make the new Universes Beyond version of that.
yeah.
Uh,
So, can you tell
battles,
me, like oh, yeah, battles. Oh god. Battles are weird. That must
yeah.
have been r like, you're doing landscape art on a Magic card. That's weird.
We tested different versions. It wasn't always landscape, but we did end up there.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, I'm very excited to see people tilting their heads at the pre-release and trying to figure out how to subtly indicate that they have a battle. Um God, those cards look so cool. Like,
I
I'm
think
very excited to see how they play.
my favorite part has been the last 2 or 3 months where everybody's trying to guess what they are. I'll
Okay,
tell you,
so
I did not hear a correct guess. I think some people had a correct guess, I just didn't hear it.
the one person who did guess correctly was Morrow on one of his podcasts talking about mechanics they didn't use, mentioned this thing that Richard Garfield had come up with that is literally one to one the battles mechanic. And
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
you are very clever, Morrow. You can get away with this because nobody's going to believe you. So
Wow.
then, would you say that you worked on like in Brothers War the prototype frames
Yep, I did
because those are
prototype.
mechanical? Yeah.
Yep,
So how did you that? Because that was a really interesting design. Because coming up with that card, which is basically two cards in one almost,
yep.
it feels like there must have been a real challenge to decide which side you make the bigger side or the smaller side, or like should it be the 8-8 on the tiny frame and the 2-3 on the big one, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Or
I think a lot of that came from, Yanni, the set lead at
mm,
the time, wanted the bigger and more exciting robot to be the main card.
yeah,
So that's kinda why we did it in the order we did, and then we were, restricted to one side of the card at that point, so, it was just kinda building it in there to where it all made sense.
yeah, I thought it was a really clever way to do it, and it really indicated it helped us understand what the cards do. Like, I thought it was a really well done mechanic. I mean, it's really fun to play too.
Yeah.
Um, oh wait, did you work on Unfinity or on fourth?
Unfinity, yeah.
Yes.
On 4th.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, unstable, Unfinity, on whatever. Because I know the unsets always have weird approaches to Magic. Let's say,
Yeah.
uh, did you get to do any work on that?
Yeah, it wasn't as weird as some of the older unsets, but,
Yeah,
attractions were new, the sticker sheets, I did the full layout of that.
man,
The
I hope someday we find out the full story of what happened with the stickers to cause that delay, but that's not something you're going to reveal here. Um,
Correct.
but the idea of coming up with stickers in general must have been like that's a challenge unto itself, right?
Yeah, I was on the vision team for it, or exploratory. I was one of the earlier I think it was exploratory because it was still under, Rosewater lead, for
Mm,
Unfinity, and, yeah, testing, we didn't have stickers at the time because this is
yeah.
just a concept at the
Post-it
time,
notes.
but we were just, yeah, testing anything, yeah, it was it was just a lot of fun, honestly.
What did you think the people were going to react to it?
I think the kind of what the way they did it is fun, like, if you draft
Yeah.
Unfinity, it is a fun set, that's what all the
Oh,
unsets are,
absolutely.
and I love the new philosophy on unsets to where they're really playable, just like a normal draft.
Yes. Oh my god. Un Like for instance, Unstable and Unfinity are
Yeah,
genius designs. Unstable is one of the best draft formats of all time. And like when you go back and people are like, let's play the full unblock. And I'm like, no, 1 and 2 are garbage and you don't want to do that. Like
and
they read better than they play.
I'm a big, like, theme park fan, like, I used to live in
Uh,
Florida, so I go to Universal and Disney all the time, so I love theme parks, and then Unfinity is a giant theme park in space, so what's not to love about it?
yeah, and I love the Jetsons alt art, like 60s pop art
Yes.
style. It was super weird and super cool. Like, and the full art lands there were like stunning. Uh,
Yes.
God, dude.
The whatever the galactic treatment was, the
Oh
star
my God,
pattern.
right? The
Yeah.
the shock lands, especially like Godless Shrine with that eclipse going through it. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I love it so much. Um, it's a good time if you're a fan of Bling right now. This is like the best time to be a Magic fan because
Like I
everything
said,
is.
that print innovation team is really testing things, and
I
I
need
love
to
what
talk
they're
to somebody
doing.
on that team, man. I swear to God. Like, I have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at these oil prints still. They remind me of there was the SDCC set where they had all black
Yep.
planeswalkers, and that's kind of what this feels like, except they're oil slicked because Phyrexia
I
oil.
really
I
enjoyed
love that
those
stuff.
SDCC, Planeswalkers a lot. I know they got
Yeah,
mixed reviews on, like, what some people think about them, but I love the
I
simplicity
got
of
them
it.
all. I thought they're super cool. I thought
Yeah.
like Wayne Reynolds does really good artwork and it looks very stark and very like very. I mean, yes, it's kind of divisive and it's hard to read, but it's also really cool. And I'm
Mhm.
as long as there's a readable version available, I'm all for making a cool version because I just leave the readable one in my deck box. If you need help, here it is. Um, that's why, like, except for textless cryptic command, that's too far. Or textless quest, dude. What the hell, textless Omnath? I'm just asking you as a fan. Textless Omnath for the promo from March of the Machines or whatever is. Are you kidding? Why would you do that?
I think it looks pretty cool.
Look, it looks rad.
It
Sure.
wasn't me, but
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, as a fan, like, I wish it had been like Multani and Yargle because that's already a vanilla card. It's 18-6. Make it completely textless. It's great. Oh man, I just can't stop thinking about March of the Machines because like those
it's
team
coming
ups
up
are
next
the
week.
team ups are so cool. Like
Yeah,
I love as a fan of the story, the team ups are like Thalia riding the Gitrog monster is the greatest thing in the world. It's just
I've
like
already
hi
built
ho
Goro
Thalia.
Goro and Satoru. I'm ready.
That my friend built that deck and I played
Uh,
against him at like an event because he basically like was like, okay, I've already designed this thing around this card. Those That card is nuts. It
it's
is
fast.
insanely powerful and it gets out of control insanely quickly. And I'm like, holy, this is gonna be a like I had started building like a ninjutsu kind of deck off that. And I
Mhm.
realized I'm just like making the weakest possible version of a Goro Goro deck that you can do.
Yeah,
Because that
I
card's
ended.
bananagrams.
I landed on Hasty Dragons as the theme, and then I just built Ninjutsu as my Oathbreaker deck with Kaito.
Oh, have you started playing Oathbreaker?
I built my decks. I'm ready to play at Command Fest this weekend. So I got
I'm
Kaito
interested
and a
in
Lumber.
hearing what you think about it. Like, I
Yeah,
played Oathbreaker when it first came out, and I converted a bunch of my Brawl decks to being Oath decks, and it's cool. Like, I built this really neat Kiora deck that had, like,
yeah.
all of my favorite green, blue, like, ramp things into Ulamog, whatever. It was great and very powerful. I sit down against somebody who's playing Ashiok with the blue-black, mill 10 cards off your library as a special
Oh,
card.
Glimpse the Unthinkable.
Yeah, and I'm just like, "Oh, well then, guess I die."
Well, you got to do that to three people. Oh no, you did 1v1. You said right.
No, we played a
Oh
three-way game, but it was still like that deck had just like every possible mill thing and just like
yeah,
m- all of the stupid Demir mills, which are like mill until you hit 4 lands and then cry. It sucks. It definitely took the wind out of my sails for that format, but for a format that's made to be played in half an hour chunks on your lunch break, it's
yeah,
phenomenal. And I'm a big fan of the guys who make it. It's really, really cool.
yeah.
Um, I wish I knew. Like, you probably are the wrong person to talk to, but do you know how it got an official status?
I don't. That's
Yeah,
not.
because like
That's
it
not
just
my
showed up one
department.
day. You're like, it just showed up one day, and I'm like, sweet, I love to see it. Like,
yeah,
more fan formats is better for everybody. Um, do you play a lot of Commander?
I do play a lot of Commander. That's my main format now that I can't play competitive. So
Isn't it? It's weird how many like competitive Magic players who are at WotC suddenly become Commander players because it's like, well, I can't just tournament grind anymore, so I guess I'll just build 100 card piles. Um,
yeah, my best friend from Florida still teases me. He's like, I had to like bribe you to start playing Commander, and I'm like, I got 12 decks. I'm down to four now. I did just clean, but
when did you discover Commander?
it was probably about half a year before I started Wizards. I
Handy.
built I built mono white 8.5 tells.
Do you really have like? Is every deck of yours really a Kamigawa legend?
Yeah, it's a way for me to not have every legend, especially since I
Fair.
work on so many of them.
That's fair.
Um,
Have you built any decks around legends you've designed?
I have a train. I do have a Tremi built. I haven't played it since Aquaria came out. I, I mean, I've worked on all the Kamigawa ones I have together now, except Toshiro because that was from original Kamigawa.
Yeah.
Uh,
Toshiro's I can see that you like Toshiro. I'm not gonna lie.
oh
The
yeah, yeah,
poster behind you is gorgeous.
yeah.
Um, man, original Kamigawa block had such a resurrection with Commander. Like it
Mhm.
was great as a draft format and then hated for being just completely weird and like unplayable outside of that. And then Commander's like, hey, we need legends. Where are we gonna find legendary cards? And Kamigawa's like, I'm right here. And now it's like there's like for instance there's that stupid card from Saviors which is Sasayo or Sasako or something, the one that you need 7 lands in your hand to flip it
Yep.
over, and then afterwards all of your lands tap for mana equal to the number of lands in play or something.
Yeah,
It's the most ridiculous
I love
card
it.
in the world. Like, what is going on? I'm really glad you guys didn't bring back flip cards. Just arbitrarily glad that that stayed in the past. But I don't know. I think that Neon Dynasty is the model going forward for what sets should look like, and it was just phenomenally done. Like, I don't
Thanks.
know. I love that set. Like, every deck I have has like a crap ton of cards from it now. It's just like
Yeah,
they're just eternal cards in there. Like, obviously, Boseiju is maybe a little pushed, but that being notwithstanding, just like Jukai Naturalist, the little enchantment dude, makes me so happy.
yeah,
Like, the only standard deck I've played was the aura the runes deck, which was basically
yeah,
Kaldheim plus Kamigawa, and I'm like, there we
yep.
go. It's like everything I want. If they could find a way to make Kaladesh in there, then I would just be okay. Well, maybe we don't want triple K, but I'm just like that's a step too far. Um, Anyways, man, thank you so much for joining me, and I
Yeah, thanks
apologize
for
for
having me.
how random this episode ended up being. It just
No, we
every
talked about
time
all the things.
yeah, the thing is every time I would say something, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I also did this." I'm like, "Well, I need to know about that now." And then it's just like it just blossoms from there. But, I think you're doing amazing stuff, man. I really, really appreciate what you're adding to Magic,
Thank
and,
you.
I've enjoyed all the sets that you've worked on, and, like, I knew that you worked on the Commander decks because I remember I've read all those articles and stuff. I didn't know that you had worked on the main sets, but that
Mhm.
makes sense. Also, I didn't know that you were a senior game designer. Congratulations, that's really
Thank
cool.
you.
Like, um I look forward to finding out whatever that set is that you're going to be actually leading.
I am
Uh,
so excited. I'm leading it now. The team has quote disbanded, so we're in the final
were
stretches.
you on set design or were you on vision design for that? Can you say it?
Uh, yeah, I can. I think I can say that. That's I was on the vision, and then I took over as lead for set design.
That's sweet. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like vision design feels like okay, we're going to come up with the themes and the general idea, and set design like we're actually making the cards, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how, a good way to look at it. Yeah, exploratory and vision are kind of like just going wide, trying to figure out find the fun, and then start sculpting it, and then set design is what really pounds it down.
Which side do you enjoy more?
I think I like set design. I think restriction breeds creativity. So I like some guidelines.
Yeah, it's really hard to stare at a blank piece of paper and be like, okay,
Yeah,
we need a set. Um, yeah.
and that's what Maro's really good at doing. He leads all the exploratories and whatnot because he's just good at finding all the wild and wacky things.
Okay. Last thing I will ask you, what is your favorite card in Neon Dynasty?
And Neon Dynasty is Goro Goro. I pitched that little goblin. His story just kind of rolled with it. At the time, he was made to worship Ryusei, but Ryusei was reincarnated. He just doesn't know, so he still follows Atsushi, just saying praise to Ryusei, but Atsushi just tolerates it. So I love that they rolled with the story of the card I pitched.
That's so good. Oh god, man, I love that set. I love everything about that set. I love the art in that set. I love the I don't know, top to bottom, best set ever made. But anyways, man, uh, thank you again for joining me. If folks wanted to find you and talk to you and figure out more about you, where could they go?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at I'm Daniel Holt. That's where you can find me. And
Yeah,
I'm at WotC making
and
magic.
yeah, and you definitely interact with us like all the time, which is really cool. Like
Yeah.
it's fun to hang out with Watsy people on the twits and like just see what you guys are coming
And
up with.
I love going to events and playing Commander. If you ever see me at an event, please ask me for a game. I am down to play.
Yeah, I'm really sad that we can't be at the same command fest, but somebody decided to put four of them on the same weekend of four corners of the country. So GG's. Are
More
you going to be
people
in
playing
Minnesota?
Magic. I will be in Minnesota. Haven't
Yeah,
announced
I
it yet, but I will be there.
well, by the time this comes out, you will be there.
Okay. I didn't know the
Well, I
timeline.
don't know. It may not. I don't know. This will probably be out in 3 weeks or something. Anyways, notwithstanding, as always, my friends, you can find me at Girapuri Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube on Tuesdays. Thank you to my editor, EK. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.